In the name of Allah, who is kind and merciful. Dear and potential students, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Nasar, English instructor, Department of English, Cohort, University of Science and Technology, Cohort. Subject is Study Skills. Subject code is ENG-112. Lecture 30. Topic of this online class is listening to a new language. Outlines of this online class are the listening process, what makes for successful listening, background knowledge, getting involved, choosing topics that interest you, opportunities to listen, out of class opportunities, and references. Learning objectives of this class. By the end of today's session, students will be able to know the importance of listening, know the role of listening and language learning, be an active listener, the listening process. What is involved in listening? When people try to describe what it is that students have to do is they listen to a new language. They come up with several elements. These include listening for words that are recognizable, understanding the meaning of sentences or shorter utterances in a particular context, and remembering the separate parts of what they hear long enough to make sense. Of course, if listening also calls for a response, then even more elements are involved. Each of these is a complex process which is closely linked with all other aspects of language learning. Recognizing words depends on having a growing vocabulary. If the words are there in your mind, then at least you have a chance of recognizing them when someone else says them. If you have learned your vocabulary in sense groups rather than in some arbitrary way, such as alphabetical lists, then listening for meaning will be even easier. You also have to recognize the particular meaning the words is likely to have on this occasion. In all languages, words take on different meanings according to context. It is very much clear that in all languages, words take on different meanings or shades of meaning according to the context. Keep the bigger picture of the topic in mind at the same time as noticing individual words. This is easier when someone is giving a prepared talk, such as on the radio, than it is in a conversation. When people go off at tangents all the time, dragging in all sorts of different topics, to make sense of utterances. When it comes to making sense of utterances, it is tempting to try and take the sentence apart and think about all the bits. In reality, there usually isn't time for this unless you are pre-recording and replaying a tape. More useful is trying to listen to longer and longer chunks of language or trying to predict what might be the coming next. You can practice this with a tape recorder too, pressing pause and telling yourself what could be coming next as you predict and keep on listening. You are constantly adjusting your understanding. You might have thought, as one listener did, that everyone else was talking about a battle from World War II, whereas in fact the topic was capital punishment. To know the speaker's intention. Part of making sense of what people say involves knowing what their intention. It is sometimes tricky with another language to know whether someone is trying to entertain you or tell you something tragic, which makes it difficult even to have the right expression on your face. Irony is another thing that is hard to pick up. Perhaps you don't understand whether the person is asking a question or making a statement or a complaint or anything else. To think of a parallel in your own language. When you get off the phone to a friend and someone immediately asks, what did he have to say? You paraphrase what you heard rather than repeating the exact words. This happens because you put the new information into your mind alongside everything. Always you know about the speaker, the events he or she is describing, and so on. What makes for successful listening? Good listening depends on a number of factors. Good listening depends on a number of factors which you can measure yourself against. General intelligence seems to make a difference. As a student of languages, you have probably demonstrated intelligence already. Another is your memory. As I have explained in the previous class, listening involves a good memory, so that anything you do to improve your memory in general will also improve your listening. There are also other quite specific factors. For example, your background knowledge, your involvement, your interest in the topic, and your relationship with the speaker. Background knowledge. When you are listening to something such as a conversation, a talk, or a play, the more you know about the topic, the better. Before going to see a play, find out something about the story. This need not be enough to spoil the plot, but just enough to fill in some of the background information without which you might spend the first half wondering what on earth it's all about. One example of failing to have the right background knowledge happened when one person invited another to a party at his home at 20 to 4. This seemed a very strange time to the listener, who assumed he had misheard. However much he rechecked the answer, always came back the same. The party was to be at 20 to 4. In the end, it came down to knowing that the speaker worked at a factory where the workers would be finishing at 3:30 and would be walking straight around the corner to the party. Getting involved. The students' involvement in listening plays an important part. If you put together all the activities that students report for their listening, you could arrange them on a continuum according to how active the listener is. Choosing topics that interest you. Your interest in the topic is important too. Of course, you can't force yourself to be interested in every topic that you have to listen to. But when it comes to out of class listening, exercise some choice. If you have a choice of tabs in the language laboratory, go for those where the topics are stimulating to you. Select radio broadcasts or television programs on topics you like. These need not to be related to your studies. Your relationship with the speaker. Finally, your relationship with the speaker makes a difference to your listening. This is due partly to you and partly to the other person. We all pay more attention to someone who entrusts us, either in a pleasant or in unpleasant way. The speaker, in turn, will respond by communicating better if you seem to be involved. Opportunities to listen. Successful language learners mention many opportunities for practicing listening within a language course, but their answers to the questions about what they do to improve their listening show that they also go for a step further than the minimum provided. They start by referring to opportunities in class, then to out of class opportunities within the school or college or university, and finally to opportunities further afield. In class opportunities within their language classes, they mentioned these opportunities. Class listening exercises. You may be given dictations in class, or you may be asked to listen to something and then respond to it in some way. The language laboratory is the place where you do to individual listening practice. Unlike the lecture in the oral class, you have the chance to listen to the same thing 10 times, or if you want to, more if you want to, where the lecturer and other students can be annoyed at too many requests for repetition. Machines never tire. Conversation classes. During the talking time of your course, you have a different kind of challenge. Instead of listening and taking things down, you are expected to listen and take part. The two are closely linked. Your listening develops as you find yourself responding and sometimes finding out directly or indirectly that you have misheard. Some students referred to extra voluntary conversation classes They are a great way to increase your chance to listen actively. Out of class opportunities. Foreign language films and videos in the audiovisual library. Watching movies can be a relatively relaxed way of learning by listening. You learn to improve your listening in quite specific ways. Take them home for extra practice. Successful students mention the importance of repetition. Understanding comes gradually, increasing the more you listen. Although it is worth noting that listening for hours to sounds you don't understand all won't do much for your language learning. Conversation on cassette tape. Some conversations designed for language practice will also be available in other forms such as audio cassette, video cassette, and compact disc, particularly at the early stages of language learning. These small chunks of language are useful. They may even have an accompanying textbook so that you can look at the script as you follow the sound. Many people who have learned mainly through the printed word find it useful to make this connection. Foreign language play. This has been mentioned already as good for listening and for other aspects of language development. If you are an actor in a play, you will be having plenty of practice, but even if you are not, why not volunteer for one of the other roles that involve listening as you attend rehearsals, stagehand, costuming, and so on? Even the tickets sellers can slip in after the few first minutes. Beyond the course, going a step further than what is provided within your institution, students report their ideas. Listen to friends. Friends who are learning the language can be called upon, sometimes in an arrangement that pins down a particular time of the week to meet. Fellow students can be more tolerant of long pauses and rephrasing than native speakers are. More than one student asked friends fluent in the language to speak to me in it. There is a difference, though, in the quality of the input. One student comments that people should try to have as much contact with true French accents, as much better it can be for. Listen to yourself. Some students find that it helps to listen to themselves. One of them reads aloud onto tape and then listens to his or her voice, following the text at the same time. References: How to Study Foreign Languages by Marilyn Lewis. Thank you very much.